COVID-19 vaccines. What other countries have advocated for the 4-month delay between the first 2 shots?
Honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
The United Kingdom is doing the same thing, but let's just put that aside for a second. I really want to go back to his first comment. I can assure this member that when the Conservative Party of Canada, when 54% of their membership doesn't believe in climate change, there isn't a member on this side of the House that wants to be over there.
The honourable member will have 4 minutes to answer questions after oral questions. Statements by members, déclaration des députés, the honourable member for Toronto Centre.
Madam Speaker, the Tamil community in my riding of Toronto Centre and across Canada is excited to acknowledge the historic accomplishment of reaching $3 million in fundraising to establish a chair in Tamil studies at the University of Toronto Scarborough. It is a first in Canada. Generously supported by the SJV Chalvanayakam Charitable Foundation and more than 3,800 supporters from right around the world, including community organizations, private corporations, artists, village and alumni associations, the dream has become reality. With more than 300,000 Tamils in Canada, we are home to the largest diaspora outside of the Indian subcontinent. It is a rich and storied culture. Special congrats to the Canadian Tamil Congress, Tamil Chair Inc., and the U of T Scarborough who worked so hard on this. What a tremendous example of a grassroots effort and the power of what people can do when they work together.
The honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Madam Speaker, volunteers are the backbone of our communities. Earlier this month was National Volunteer Week, where we pay tribute to their important work. From church groups to service clubs to individuals looking to make a difference, I'm always impressed by the volunteers in Wellington, Halton Hills, especially this year during a pandemic. Their work does not go unnoticed. I'd like to highlight one volunteer, Marilyn Sargentson, who was named Georgetown Lions Citizen of the Year. Over the years, Marilyn has contributed so much to our community, from volunteering at George Kennedy Public School to serving on various boards to being part of the Bruce Trail organization. Marilyn was also elected as the first female town councillor and mayor of Halton Hills, a groundbreaking accomplishment. Thank you, Marilyn Sargentson, and all the other volunteers for your service to our local communities. You are helping to build a better Canada.
The honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can you hear me? Mr. Speaker, in March, a remarkable individual, Pat Noble, who I had the pleasure of working with for 12 years, retired from her position as the executive assistant to the mayor of the town of Newmarket. Pat was a consummate professional, admired and respected by her colleagues, and a tireless champion for the community. Her commitment to making a positive difference in the lives of others showed through the numerous community projects that she was involved in while representing the office of the mayor of the town of Newmarket. Arts and Cultures, Belinda's Place, the Margaret Bain Hospice, the Oasis Center for Bereavement and Healing, and numerous golf tournaments raising funds to benefit community projects are just a few of the initiatives that Pat helped lead. Congratulations on your retirement, Pat, and thank you on behalf of the residents of Newmarket for making our town a better place to live.
L'honorable député de Laurentides-Labelle.
The honourable member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to pay tribute to Claude Chapdelaine, a sports cartographer from Saint-Adèle in the beautiful Pays d'en-Haut County. Over 15 years, he has mapped well over a dozen cross-country ski paths and created 6 biking itineraries. He started his career in Saint-Adèle in my beautiful riding. Moreover, he was one of those who collaborated on creating the new Mont-Loup-Garou Park, which is a gem in our tourism sector dedicated to non-motorized sports. Mr. Chapdelaine, I wish you good health. At 80 years of age, you are a model. You are an active participant in our community in this beautiful area of Laurentides-Labelle. On behalf of everyone in our area who loves sports, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. The honourable member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, the Canada Summer Jobs Program gives our youth the opportunity to acquire real work experience and develop professional skills with local businesses and organizations. Thanks to our government's expansion of this program, up to 120,000 jobs will be created throughout the country this summer. The program has always been popular in my riding, and this year is no exception. I'm proud to say that more than 100 employers will participate, and nearly 500 jobs will be created in Vimy. This year, the number of jobs has doubled compared to last year. I'd like to thank the employers who are participating in the Canada Summer Jobs Program. They are helping our youth gain precious career and life experiences.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, Judy is a travel advisor in my riding, one of 12,000 across Canada. Today, I tell their story in her words. Imagine building a travel business for over 25 years, building relationships with your clients year after year, planning amazing trips and great memories. Now imagine the world shuts its doors, you are busy getting frantic clients back home, processing hundreds of cancellations, issuing travel credits, and assisting with insurance claims. All the while not qualifying for the one-size-fits-all small business funding, relying on CRB as the only means of support. How much longer can we hang on with no revenue from our businesses and no sector-specific aid from our government? And when travel reopens, who will guide our customers through all of the rules of the new normal and help start creating new memories? Mr. Speaker, COVID brought recreational travel to a halt and left travel advisors fighting for their livelihoods. They need our support.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the heartbreaking news we are hearing from India in their fight against the coronavirus. India has seen a critical increase in the number of coronavirus cases in the last few weeks, with upwards of 350,000 cases a day and around 3,000 deaths. Recently, due to the virus, my sincere condolences go out to everyone impacted by the virus, to those struggling for survival, and all those who have lost loved ones. Canadians across the country are sending our prayers to you. Our government announced that we will be donating $10 million to the Indian Red Cross, as well as PPE equipment and ventilators. Canadians can also donate to the cause through the Canadian Red Cross. To everyone in India, we are there for you, we care for you, and we pray for you. Take care, stay safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, it's been a difficult year for mental health of Canadians across the country because of COVID-19, and that includes the men and women who work in our agriculture sector. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak with Kim Keller, a canola farmer from Melfort, Saskatchewan, and Amy Vanderhyde, a farmer from my riding in Kings Hants, about the Do More Ag Foundation and its work to ensure there are mental health supports in place for Canadian farmers and families. The initiative began in 2017 with a conversation about the need to have specific supports in place for farmers. Ms. Keller, other co-founders and supporters have worked tirelessly to build the organization, which began in Western Canada and now has 70 different partners across the country, including my home province of Nova Scotia. I would ask that all members of this house join me in recognizing the work of the Do More Ag Foundation, and as spring planting is happening across the country, a tip of the cap to our farmers who are working tirelessly to put food on our table. We appreciate your work, and if you need us support, it's only a phone call away.
The Honourable Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, imagine a world where Canadians can more easily work in London, professional and trades credentials from BC are recognized in Sydney, and snowbirds choose between New Zealand's North and South Islands. Freer movement and labour mobility are part of several pillars of the visionary CANZIC initiative, a deeper geopolitical alliance between Canada and three of our most like-minded allies, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. A partnership that could include foreign policy coordination, pooled procurement, closer defense and security ties, and expanded trade, fostering a new era of opportunity and prosperity for Canadians. CANSIC could give our nations outsized influence on the world stage. Together, we can amplify our shared values of multiculturalism, respect for human rights and the rule of law, and counter threats posed by increasingly hostile regimes. We fought wars and today share high-level intelligence alongside our CANSIC sisters and brothers. Our ties are both current and historic as we look to embrace measures that will see Canada thrive in a post-pandemic world. I would advocate that a CANSIC future is a brighter future.
L'honorable député d'Orléans.
The Honourable Member for Orléans. Mr. Speaker, last Friday, I was pleased to be part of a talk in the Inspiration Conference series, organized by the University of Ottawa, along with my colleague, the member for Ottawa-Vanier. The talk was on the theme, Getting Results on the Hill, Women Taking Action. I'd like to thank the organization for the invitation and this great initiative. As women, we need to encourage each other and show what's possible by talking about our different experiences and backgrounds. We have extraordinary potential, leadership, and expertise to share, and nothing should stop us from achieving our dreams. That's why in the federal budget of April 19th, there was a focus on female entrepreneurship and gender equality. The multiple investments made to support women, including in childcare, show that this government is committed to Canadians' well-being. Thank you.
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Monsieur le Président, nous savons qu'en 2010.
Mr. Speaker, we know that in 2018, a woman in the Canadian Armed Forces made sexual assault allegations against the highest officer in the Army. The Prime Minister says that his office took these allegations seriously. I will just interrupt the Honourable Member. Perhaps she can place her microphone a little higher, and we will start again from the beginning. Is that better? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that in 2018, a woman in the Canadian Armed Forces made sexual assault allegations against the highest officer in the Army. The Prime Minister says that his office took these allegations seriously. Except that we know that the Minister of Defence, the Clerk of the Privy Council, and the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff all knew about this, but didn't do anything. The Prime Minister is trying to get us to believe that he didn't know, but that's hard to believe. When a woman makes a sexual harassment complaint, there should be no wrong place to go. She should be listened to and feel safe. But the Prime Minister and the Liberal government have failed women. This has been a nightmare for them. The Prime Minister and his government say that they have no tolerance for sexual harassment, but they gave General Vance a pay increase after these allegations. It seems that despite their feminist rhetoric, the Old Boys Club is alive and well with these Liberals. As a woman, I find this very disappointing.
Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Under this Prime Minister, abuse of power at the highest levels in Canada's military continues unchecked. Former Chief of the Defence Staff General Vance and other general officers are under investigation for sexual assault and misconduct. More senior officers are complicit through their actions or their silence. For 3 years, the Defence Minister knew of serious allegations against General Vance. Key officials in the Prime Minister's office, the Privy Council office, the Prime Minister's office knew, and they all did nothing. Rather than standing for women, the Prime Minister has reinforced an entrenched and toxic military culture. His inaction has emboldened the Old Boys Club and denied women the opportunity to be believed. Rather than standing for women, lasting change will come when those who have failed are held accountable. Women in the military have earned the right to serve equally with respect. Why won't this Prime Minister stand with them?
The Honourable Member for Vancouver, Kingsway.
I rise to mark the passing of a great parliamentarian and outstanding Canadian, Ian Waddell. Ian was an MP, MLA, cabinet minister, lawyer, author, film producer, social democrat, and indefatigable proponent of a more prosperous and just Canada. He served 14 years in this place, elected 3 times by the people of Vancouver Kingsway and once in Port Moody Coquitlam. After he was elected to the British Columbia legislature representing Vancouver Fraserview, Ian had a storied career. He was particularly proud of his work on the Berger Commission and the key role he played to include Indigenous rights in our Constitution. He was the lead minister responsible for the 2010 Winter Olympics winning bid and was instrumental in fostering BC's film industry. He even chatted with the Queen. Ian had a rare ability to work across party lines and seek practical outcomes, always with good humor. On behalf of my colleagues and the people of Vancouver Kingsway, we express our deepest appreciation for his public service and admiration for a life well lived.
L'honorable député de Shefford.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to be able to say today, it's my turn to be able to sound a bit boastful here, that thanks to its green spaces, proximity to metropolitan areas, and especially its peace and quiet, the municipality of Shefford, in my riding of the same name, has won the prestigious award of the City of Happiness. That's according to the famous ranking of the 100 happiest towns in Quebec, carried out by the Léger polling firm, with an index of, drumroll, 81.88. And that's at its first time being especially distinguished in the ranking. With the beautiful landscape of its mountain and valley, Shefford has become particularly attractive for artists. I would like to pay tribute to the dynamic nature of the inhabitants and elected officials of Shefford. And I can only say that the town of Shefford is a reflection of the well-being of the entire riding of Shefford.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Systemic misogyny grows when people with power use their privilege to protect those who perpetuate it. The member from Pickering-Uxbridge was silent when the Prime Minister's groping allegations came to light, and she was silent when the Prime Minister expelled the member from Vancouver-Granville from Cabinet and caucus for speaking truth to power. She was silent on revelations that the Prime Minister allowed the member from Kitchener South Hespeler to run as a Liberal, while knowing that he was the subject of substantiated harassment allegations. And today, she is silent about those from her own party who have turned a blind eye to gross sexual misconduct in Canada's military. Nothing will change for women if men of privilege are allowed to get away with misogyny through silence or deflected blame. Jane Philippot had the courage to publicly call out misogyny in her tent, and I've done the same. Today, I call upon the member from Pickering-Uxbridge and all Liberal MPs to find some courage, do the same, and stand up for the women in Canadian Armed Forces.
The honourable member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, April is Sikh Heritage Month, a time to recognize and highlight the important contributions that Sikh communities have made and continue to make to our country's cultural, economic, political, and social life. The first Sikh immigrants arrived in Canada in the late 19th century, and today our country is home to more than 500,000 Sikh Canadians, making it one of the largest Sikh diasporas in the world. During these unprecedented times, we thank Sikh communities for the many contributions to our country since the pandemic began, from Rexdale Sikh spiritual centers providing food to the community, to our seniors checking in on one another, to all those working on the healthcare and essential front lines. These are just a few instances of Sikhism's core principles of equality, compassion, and generosity at work. Sikh Canadians make our community stronger. I wish everyone a very happy Sikh Heritage Month.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the third wave is devastating this country. New restrictions are in place from coast to coast. The United States of America has administered 220 million doses of vaccines. Canada has administered less than 6% of that number. The government knew that it wouldn't have enough vaccines in place to prevent a third wave. So why did it not secure the border to keep out the dangerous variants?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would just like to provide some context for the numbers of doses being received in this country. 14.7 million doses received. That's 31% of Canadians who've received at least one dose, Mr. Speaker. And we are third in the G20 for cumulative doses administered. Mr. Speaker, we're going to see 2 million doses of Pfizer coming into this country in the month of May per week, and 2.5 million doses per week in the month of June. Mr. Speaker, 48 to 50 million doses will be here by the end of June. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, la troisième.
Mr. Speaker, the third wave and variants are ravaging our country. From coast to coast, provinces are taking new steps to control the virus. The U.S. has administered 220 million doses, but Canada, less than 6% of that number. The government knew that it wouldn't receive the vaccines in time. So why did it leave the border open? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the facts are as follows. The vaccine production was expanding in January and February, and now we have exceeded our first quarter objective, and we are third out of G20 countries when it comes to vaccine administration. We need a multifaceted approach to fight this virus. Vaccines, PPE, and health protocols. Thank you very much.
Président, les autres pays.
Mr. Speaker, other countries got their vaccines in January and February, but not Canada. According to the federal government's modeling, Canadians shouldn't expect any reopening before 20% of Canadians are fully vaccinated, and 75% have received their first dose. On what date will the Liberal government reach that target? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have a great vaccination story to tell. We are second in the G20, Mr. Speaker, for administration of vaccines for first dose. And Mr. Speaker, many Canadians will be receiving their second dose over the months to come. May is going to be a bumper crop, Mr. Speaker, and provinces and territories are getting ready now to administer the most vaccines that we have to date. I am very much looking forward to their work and to seeing Canada through this together.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Mr. The amendments the government has passed on Bill C-10 have been called a full-blown assault on free expression. In November, the Prime Minister said he would always defend freedom of expression, but now he's trying to regulate political speech that he doesn't like. Why is the government attacking Canadians' free speech rights yet again?
Full Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to quote the member for Richmond-Athabasca just a few months ago, who said that Bill C-10, in fact, didn't go far enough because he wanted social media network to be regulated. But he wasn't the only one. The member for Lakeland said that we had to do something, and I quote, to protect youth and victims of abuse. Or the member for Calgary Skyview, who said that these companies profit off sexual exploitation and racism. We are acting as we've promised to do, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to do so.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'd refer that minister to comments from the Canadian Research Chair in Internet Law. And he said that minister's amendments to Bill C-10 they'll speak to potential new regulation of free speech on Canadians, most notably on political speech. The full force of the federal government can now be directed at political speech that minister and his Prime Minister simply doesn't like. Mr. Speaker, why is that minister and the Liberal government the most anti-internet government in Canadian history?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I could point to SOCAN, the Canadian Independent Music Association, l'Association professionnelle des éditions de l'édition musicale, that have all supported the amendments that we've proposed for Bill C-10, and that in fact have said that the characterization that this bill would attain freedom of expression are factually incorrect and dangerously misleading, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we learned on TVA that people who have travelled abroad and then have to do the hotel quarantine will have the right to EI. This government is giving $1,000 to people in their quarantine. Now, we told them that didn't make sense and they backtracked. And Now they're getting EI money. The government needs to understand that you don't want to reward people who choose not to follow health guidelines in the middle of a pandemic. What's so hard to understand about that? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, let's be very clear. No one can have access to federal assistance during a return to Canada for a non-essential trip, so nothing has changed. Sickness benefits will continue to be offered only to Canadians who cannot work because they're sick or injured, and not those who need to be in quarantine after having chosen to take a vacation abroad. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Well, if you look at TVA, you can see that she's wrong. People are told over and over not to travel. The federal government is telling people, but if you decide to take a vacation to the south, well, the quarantine will harm workers. Will the government stop this comedy of errors immediately and change the situation and cancel this irresponsible decision? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a typical example of a question that was written before the answer was given. My colleague explained very clearly that EI benefits will not be available to those people. We were very clear on that. Nothing has changed. This does not apply to people who are taking vacations. The end.
Le député de Burnaby.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Thank you. The third wave of COVID-19 is hitting hard. And it's always the most vulnerable, essential workers, frontline workers, who continue to get sick. Then they risk passing on the infection to their families and communities. The government has the responsibility to take action. So will the Prime Minister commit to ensuring that the most vulnerable are vaccinated as soon as possible? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. The Government of Canada has been an exceptionally strong partner to provinces and territories when it comes to vaccination. Not only have we procured a diverse portfolio, but we've also paid for them entirely, alleviating provinces and territories from the burden of vaccinating. We've also supported them, Mr. Speaker, with logistics and with additional support should they need access to human resources for deployment. Mr. Speaker, we'll be there for provinces and territories no matter what their health, human resources need or other equipment needs are.
Member for Burnaby South.
Yesterday, I asked the question of the Prime Minister that whether he would be willing to improve paid sick leave or not. And instead of responding to that question, he responded with jibber-jabber about jurisdiction. Here's the thing. There is already a federal paid sick leave program. The problem is, it doesn't work. Crazy idea, how about we make it work? All the experts agree that a paid sick leave program that works would save lives. So why does this Prime Minister hide behind excuses when we're saying improve the program that's already there? So will the Prime Minister do that and save lives?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I disagree. This program is absolutely working. From the beginning of our pandemic, our government has focused on providing assistance for Canadians. Paid sick leave has been a foundational element of our public health response. More than 8 million workers access to CERB. Close to 500,000 Canadians have claimed the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefits, and a million more continue to have access to 4 weeks paid sick leave. Beyond our emergency supports, 8 million workers have access to paid sick days as a result of the EI Premium Reduction Program. And hundreds of thousands of workers continue to access more flexible EI sickness benefits. Through Budget 2021, we're extending EI sickness benefits to 26 weeks, providing yet another 169,000 Canadians with additional support.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government had asked for Justice Deschamps to look into harassment and sexual assault in the Canadian Armed Forces. In 2015, she tabled her report. 6 years later, the government is proud to announce the creation of an investigation led by Louise Arbour on sexual assault and harassment in the Canadian Armed Forces. It's exactly the same thing 6 years later. Is this not a demonstration of the fact that since this government has come to power, nothing has changed in the Canadian Armed Forces because this government did nothing despite our report? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to begin today by acknowledging the anniversary of the crash of Stalker 22 off the coast of Greece. 1 year ago today, we lost 6 Canadian Armed Forces members in the line of duty. They were dedicated to their work, passionate about serving Canada, and beloved by their crew, families, and community. And our thoughts are with the families today. And when it comes to sexual misconduct in the Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Speaker, we are absolutely committed to root this out. And today's announcement was another step in that. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Louis.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, our thoughts are also with the victims. But our thoughts are also with those who are victims of sexual harassment in the Canadian Armed Forces. Now, for 6 years, this government did nothing, despite the 2015 report that we ordered. This government continues not to tell Canadians the truth about the Prime Minister's behaviour. We know that the Prime Minister said at the beginning of the week that people in his cabinet never knew that there was an issue of sexual harassment in the case of General Vance. But an email demonstrates that in 2018 he knew. So when will the Prime Minister finally tell Canadians the truth? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has no tolerance for misconduct. We follow the proper process, the same one as the previous government followed. The current leader of the official opposition was made aware of misconduct rumors in 2015. It was serious enough that he asked his staff to notify the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, who then took it to the Privy Council office for review. In other words, the same steps were followed. Now, can the leader of the opposition seriously have his party stand here and decry that process, the same one that he took? Thank you.
Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, a defense minister must ensure that Canadians' military not only defends the values for which our nation stands, but also embodies them. But under this minister, the Old Boys Club continues unchecked. Members of the military police feel they can safely mock victims of sexual misconduct rather than protect them from it. Senior officers believe they can make recommendations about service members' conduct without taking into consideration convictions of sexual assault. Will the minister admit he's failed in his duty as Minister of National Defence?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we learned very troubling news yesterday that Prime Minister Harper appointed, when Prime Minister Harper appointed General Vance in 2015, even though that he was under active investigation by CFNIS. Now, days after the Conservatives appointed him, the investigation was suddenly dropped. Now, according to an ATIP, the commanding officer said that he was under pressure. Now, from who at that time? Now, the leader of the opposition says he passed along the sexual misconduct allegations by General Vance in 2015, claiming those were looked into. How is it possible that if General Vance was appointed at that time, then that the investigation was suddenly dropped? Thank you.
Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, justice delayed is justice denied. This defense minister failed to implement the Deschamps report, and this new review will suffer the same fate. Rather than standing for women, he has reinforced an entrenched and toxic military culture. He knew about the allegations of sexual misconduct against General Vance for 3 years and did nothing. His inaction has emboldened the Old Boys Club and denied women the opportunity to be believed. Will the minister admit he has failed in his duty as Minister of National Defence?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said from the beginning, that I treat all cases of misconduct with the utmost seriousness and always followed all proper processes. We actually saw the same process in 2015. So let's talk about 2015. The Harper Conservative appointed General Vance while he had an active CFN investigation looking into him. That right after that he was appointed, that investigation was suddenly dropped. And then the leader of the opposition passed along rumors of sexual misconduct that were supposedly looked into. Now, perhaps the leader of the opposition knows more than what he has said so far. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, that was a ridiculous answer, Mr. Speaker. You know, the defense minister has lost complete control of his department. Yesterday, we learned a private Facebook group for military police posted disgusting attacks on one of General Vance's alleged victims. This defense minister left General Vance in charge of Operation Honor for 3 years, despite allegations of sexual misconduct, and now we're seeing the fallout. Does the defense minister understand his own inaction has inflamed the sexual misconduct and misogyny in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since we're talking about 2015, when General Vance was appointed, the member opposite was Parliamentary Secretary of National Defence at that time. Now that we learned that troubling news yesterday, that when Prime Minister Harper appointed General Vance in July 2015, even though that he was under active investigation by CFNS at that time. Now, did the member opposite also know, and what did he do at that time? Just days after the Conservatives appointed him, the investigation was suddenly dropped. According to an ATIP, the commanding officers said that he was under pressure. By who? Maybe the member opposite. We don't know. The leader of the opposition says that he passed along sexual misconduct allegations by General Vance in July 2015, claiming that they were looked into. How is it possible? How is this possible if General Vance was appointed at the time that the investigation was suddenly?
Honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Well, unlike the minister who turned a blind eye and ran for the hills, the Conservatives actually investigated. Canadians are shocked to learn a senior officer wrote a glowing recommendation to the courts in support of a soldier convicted of sexual assaulting a colleague. Appallingly, numbers show at least 216 cases of sexual assault and harassment in the military were pleaded down to administrative charges under this minister's watch, a mere slap on the wrist. Will the defense minister admit he failed to protect our women and men in uniform? And was he wrong to leave General Vance in charge of Operation Honor? Answer the question, no more rhetoric.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue to take strong action, and that's exactly what today's announcement was about. Mr. Speaker, as I stated before, in July 2015, when an investigation was going on, why did they appoint General Vance at that time? And the member opposite was a parliamentary secretary of national defense at that time. Talk about knowing something and then still appointing somebody, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, we're going to be focused on survivors, and that's what our announcement was about today, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Order. I just want to remind the honourable members that when they do speak in the chamber, they can do it kind of anonymously because we can't really point them out. But online, you come out front and centre, and I'm sure nobody wants to draw attention to themselves for doing something incorrect in the chamber. I'll let the honourable minister finish off. He's got about 6 seconds left.
Mr. Speaker, obviously the member opposite wants to. But one thing, Mr. Speaker, I can say absolute certainty, that our government is going to be focused on the survivors and the way ahead to make this better. This is why we have launched an external review. This is why we are taking in place and making sure that our budget represents.
We seem to be having a little bit of a technical issue, but that time is up. L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Immigration promised to speed up Quebec's immigration files. Instead, processing has slowed down in 2020. While Quebec had a target of 44,000 immigrants, the minister acknowledged that he admitted 17,000 fewer people than that. He also recognized that nearly 10,000 files of workers who are already in Quebec could have been processed but weren't. We're talking about 10,000 people who are already here, already working, already integrated into society, already fluent in French. What will the minister do to put his department in order? The Honourable Minister.
Mr.
Speaker, we are working very closely with the Quebec government to ensure that they get the qualified workers that they need. We welcomed more than 7,000 qualified workers, an increase over last year, and our government will continue to respect our immigration targets so that Quebec will get the workers it needs. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, nearly 7,000 applications for permanent residency have still not been opened at Immigration Canada and have not been acknowledged. 7,000 envelopes gathering dust on a desk. We understand that an acknowledgement of receipt doesn't speed up the processing of the files, but an acknowledgement of receipt is necessary to have access to health insurance and to avoid having the selection certificate expire. Quebec has put in place a temporary solution, but it's not the Quebec government's job to do the minister's work. Can the minister guarantee that he will respond to the 7,000 families that are waiting and that this kind of backlog won't happen again? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are sending staff to Quebec, where there's a significant labor shortage in a number of sectors. I'm pleased to see that Quebec intends to increase its immigration thresholds in coming years, which will allow us to bring in even more qualified workers than Quebec needs. I will continue to work with my Quebec counterparts to support Quebec's economic recovery and economic recovery across Canada. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the member on his French. I just wish that his immigration policies had improved the same way. There are unacceptable delays in granting visas and work permits. They didn't open envelopes of applicants for permanent residency made from Quebec, while sending confirmations of permanent residency to people who were then prevented from returning to Canada. They failed to manage the arrival of temporary foreign workers. They failed to meet their own sponsorship targets. Can the minister admit that when things are this bad, the problem must be deeper than just the pandemic? The Honourable Minister. I want to thank my colleague for the compliment on my French. I will continue to make an effort. Throughout the pandemic, we've worked very closely with the government of Quebec in order to identify immigration priorities. We also implemented a number of innovative measures to process files as quickly as possible and to reduce delays caused by COVID-19. There's still work to do, but we will continue to work collaboratively to ensure that the immigration system continues to serve Quebecers and Canadians. The Honourable Member for Caldone and St. Paul.
For 3 years, the Minister of Defence knew about sexual harassment allegations involving women serving in the military against Canada's highest-ranked general, and he did nothing. He even refused to look at the evidence, and he never followed up on it. This is a woman's worst nightmare, Mr. Speaker, to have the courage to bring something forward like this, but then to be ignored and dismissed. To add insult to injury, the Defence Minister gave General Vance a pay bump and extended his appointment. Will the Minister of Defence apologize for turning his back on women in the Canadian Armed Forces?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Armed Forces members make enormous sacrifice to protect Canadians, and regardless of rank or gender, and they have an undeniable right to serve with the safety. It is clear that we have not lived up to our responsibility to protect our members from misconduct. That's why we announced today that Madam Louise Arbour will lead an independent external comprehensive review into harassment and sexual misconduct in DND and CAF. And we also named Lieutenant General Jenny Carillon as the Chief Professional Conduct and Culture. These are just some of the first steps that we are taking. We know that we have much more work to do, and we will get it done. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, we already have a report on this. Now is the time to actually act on that. The minister's announcement today, as he knows, has no timeline, no start date, no urgency. Leah West was sexually assaulted by a senior officer while serving in our military and has said not a single member of the Canadian Armed Forces or DND leadership or the government reached out to her since then. And so today's announcement, she said, quote, rings hollow. Absolutely hollow, in fact, is what she said. And I really wish that the minister would show some humility, maybe pick up the phone and apologize to Leah West and the other women who have been harassed and assaulted. Will he do that, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Member for the Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have heard from survivors. We have had conducted roundtables with experts. The announcement today was about taking action on what we have heard, immediate action. When it comes to providing greater support on peer-to-peer support, the announcements that we made in Budget 2021, the actions that we have taken with the external review, that's going to be much broader to making sure that we have an independent process that's going to give confidence to the women in the Canadian Armed Forces to be able to come forward. We owe it to them. We need to get this right, and we will. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, generations of Canadian families have been supported by good jobs in the automotive industry, but this is all at risk as the auto sector has no plan. The budget mentions electric vehicle battery research, but the Liberals continue to fail workers by not creating a national auto policy. Canada has fallen behind, and there's no better example than stalled production because we are dependent on foreign microchips. Furthermore, Ford and GM are creating production of batteries in the U.S., while Chrysler has brand new electric vehicle plants in Detroit across from Windsor. When will the government implement a national auto policy to protect and create these good jobs in Canada for Canadians and their families?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to thank my honourable colleague for his question. As he knows full well, we have partnered with various unions since the first day we were elected. We have had numerous consultations, and we're very much focused on ensuring that the future of our auto sector is healthy and it's robust, and we're there for the workers. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Vancouver East.
The PBO and housing policy experts like Steve Pomeroy have repeatedly criticized the affordability criteria in the largest part of the Liberals' housing strategy. For instance, they announced a project in Ottawa, quote, providing 65 units at only 21% of median income. This makes the housing sound affordable, but in reality is $1,900 a month, nearly 50% higher than Ottawa's average market rent. The Liberals don't seem to have any idea what is affordable to everyday Canadians. Why is the government more concerned about programs that sound good than delivering truly affordable housing to Canadians?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that every Canadian deserves a safe and affordable place to call home. A long-term plan for faster growing Canadian economy must include housing that is affordable for working Canadians. That is why in Budget 2021, our government has a plan to invest $2.5 billion and reallocate $1.3 billion in existing funding to speed up the construction, repair, or support of 35,000 affordable housing units. We'll continue to remain ambitious as part of the National Housing Strategy, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the Minister of Defence's comments, I feel that he has no credibility on this. A woman came forward, he ignored what she said, completely dismissed it, did not follow up. It's been 3 years, and now he's announcing a report. We've already had a report. What women need is actual action in our armed forces. They need to be defended by the government elected by the people, by Canadians, and we're not seeing that. He has no credibility. Quite simply, the Old Boys Club can't fix a problem that it created. I would like to see some leadership taken by the member. So can he respond? Is there going to be solutions, or is it?
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt the honourable member. Someone has their microphone on. Vous avez votre microphone. It's technical issues today. Alors, est-ce que je peux demander que tout le monde se mette en sourdine?
Could I ask that everyone put themselves on mute?
St. Paul, if she can start her question right from the beginning, and we'll start that one over. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I just feel that this is a very frustrating situation for all women to hear who have witnessed anything like this. The bottom line is a woman came forward and the minister dismissed it. He did not take it seriously. He did not follow up in 3 years. And now he's announcing a report. We've already had a report, and yet nothing happened since then. So we want to see actions. Will the minister acknowledge his failure to act, the lack of courage he's shown to women in our armed forces, and take real action and provide leadership? He was elected by the people. Where is the leadership, Mr. Speaker?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one thing I can assure you, that we took immediate action, that the complaint was immediately passed on to the Privy Council office, as I stated before, so that the Governor Council appointment can be looked into. Exactly the same process that the previous government had taken. And that's why I announced today also that we are creating a new internal organization that will be led by Lieutenant General Jenny Carillon as the Chief Professional Conduct and Culture. She'll be tasked with unifying, integrating, and coordinating all policies, programs, and activities that currently address systemic misconduct and support cultural change across national defense. We need to make sure that everyone who wants to come forward feels comfortable coming forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have met the challenges of COVID head-on, but remain concerned about the future. Over the last year, countless Londoners have told me about the CERB, wage supports for businesses, and other supports, and how they sustained them during the pandemic. Of course, Budget 2021 lays out a vision where women, men, families, small businesses, and communities are able to plan with greater confidence. But vaccines are key to ensuring that confidence as well. Can the minister update this House on the vaccine doses we are receiving this year and into the future? Thank you very much.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member from London North Centre for his question. It is true. We have been here for Canadians at every step. And I'm privileged to share that Canada is once again one of the first countries to sign an agreement for COVID-19 vaccines with a blue chip supplier like Pfizer. 35 million doses in 2022, 30 million doses in 2023. We will also be receiving 2 million doses a week in May, 2.5 million doses in June, for a total of 48 million by the end of June. To those who suggested vaccines wouldn't arrive till 2030, that we weren't thinking of the future, that we had no plan, we do have a plan, and it's working, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
The Heritage Minister consistently tries to mislead Canadians by convincing them that Bill C-10 only applies to large online streaming companies. He even takes quotes from members of parliament and experts and uses them out of context in order to try to prove his point. It's incredibly deceptive, it's sneaky, it's crafty, it's wrong. The fact is, last week, the Liberals changed their own legislation, Bill C-10, by removing the one section that would have protected ordinary Canadians from online government censorship. Why?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm puzzled as to who's trying to deceive who, really. I have in front of me a press release from the Canadian Coalition for the Expression of Cultural Diversity that says about Bill C-10 that the characterization that this bill would somehow attempt to infringe on free speech are both factually incorrect and dangerously misleading. They represent neither the text nor the purpose of Bill C-10. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Lethbridge.
I would ask for the date of that quote because the Justice Department itself has said otherwise. We are seeing this government mimic behavior that is consistent with a basic dictatorship. It's wrong. With their transformational edit that they just made to Bill C-10, the Liberals are trying to give themselves the power to control what Canadians can read online, what they post on social media, and the videos that they watch on YouTube. Again, it's wrong. Why is the government doing this?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that press release was issued yesterday. I think what we're seeing now is, these are big, powerful, in fact, some of the wealthiest corporations on the planet. And clearly, the member opposite and her party are just afraid to stand up to them. And again, it seems that the Conservative Party is listening to the most extremist element of their party, as they have on very important issues such as climate change or women's rights to choose, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I just made a complaint to the Commissioner of Official Languages about the Liberals' lax enforcement of the Official Languages Act when it comes to the requirement for federal departments and bodies to report on their compliance with the Act. In 2019, 47 of the promised 89 reports were submitted, and in 2020, it was only 24 out of 55. If the French language is so important to the minister, why doesn't she enforce the Act within our very own federal bodies? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Obviously, protecting both languages is a priority to our government, and that will always be the case. It will remain a priority. The minister is aware and doing a lot to protect both of our beautiful languages. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, Health Canada, the RCMP, the NRC, CBC, the Museum of History, and even Treasury Board are just a few examples of federal departments or bodies that have failed to comply with the Official Languages Act. Not to mention We Charity, COVID alerts, and committee documents in English only. All that in the past 2 years of Liberal government. Could the minister stop talking, show some leadership, and just enforce the law? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Obviously, French needs to be protected and promoted in our institutions. That's a priority. The minister is very aware of this, very active, very energetic, and ensuring that French applies everywhere. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, if we keep having thousands of COVID cases in Quebec and in Canada, let's just say it's the federal variant's fault. The federal variant has allowed for 2,000 new positive cases since the start of the third wave, no less, including hundreds of variants of concern. All this without appropriate quarantine for travelers crossing at land borders and no follow-up with travelers quarantining for 3 days. When will the government tighten up quarantines and properly follow up with travelers arriving from abroad? The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, it's important that when we talk about the border that we stick to the facts, and the member opposite knows that in fact we have some of the strictest measures in the world. Mr. Speaker, the reason why he has that data is in fact because we do test, trace, and isolate travelers through a variety of different measures, and they are stringent, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we've hundreds of tickets have been issued to travelers for failing to follow the Quarantine Act. Only 1.5% of all incoming travelers have tested positive upon arrival since measures started. And Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to work hard to ensure that travelers are supported to arrive here in good health, and when they're not, take appropriate action to ensure that they get the services they need. Mr. Speaker, it's important.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Just by repeating a lie doesn't make it the truth. From April 7th to April 24th, Public Health identified 165 flights from 19 countries that had at least one passenger with COVID on board. And according to the CBC, Health Canada can't even say how many passengers tested positive after leaving the hotel where they were quarantined. There's no follow-up, 3 days in a hotel and then nothing else. That's the federal variant for you, undermining efforts by Quebec and the provinces. When will Ottawa finally take quarantine management seriously? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite knows that we have stopped at nothing to enforce quarantine, including working with our provincial and municipal partners, and we'll continue to do that, Mr. Speaker. The reason why that member has the data that he has is because we are indeed requiring travelers to submit to pre-departure tests, test on arrival, sequence tests that are positive, Mr. Speaker, test again on day 8, remain in quarantine for 14 days, and if they're not, Mr. Speaker, there are penalties and we apply them.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians continue to raise concerns about the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Canadians like Professor Anne Fitzgerald, Canadians living in diaspora groups here at home, and Canadian aid groups. Over 1 million people have been displaced, and there are reports of ethnic cleansing and gross violations of human rights. The government has committed funds to support humanitarian efforts in the region. What other measures has the government taken to defend human rights and the people of this region?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the question, and I share the honourable member's deep concern for the humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia. As he mentioned, we have committed an additional $34 million for the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia to be used flexibly to address the crisis. Myself, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister, have all spoken to our counterparts in Ethiopia. We are supporting the work of the UN Human Rights Commission to support the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission to investigate human rights abuses, including abuses of sexual and gender violence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, the deadline for amicus briefs of support for Line 5 is May 11th. That's less than 2 weeks away. A unanimous report from the Canada-US Parliamentary Committee, as well as the Natural Resources Minister, have indicated they'll send a brief to support the 25,000 Canadian jobs that'll be impacted. Can the Minister update this House as to when in the next 2 weeks it will be submitted?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 is non-negotiable. People will not be left out in the cold. I'd like to thank the members of the Canada-US Special Committee for their hard work on studying Line 5. We have received the report and will be reviewing it, but it's clear there is no daylight between parties, between Canadians on this issue. Line 5 is essential to Canada's energy security. Line 5 is not just vital for Canada, not just vital for the United States, but also vital for North America. We will do all we can to make sure that this doesn't get shut down.
The Honourable Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Enbridge Line 5 has 2 weeks left in Michigan. If oil stops flowing, Canadians, particularly in Ontario and Quebec, will face fuel shortages and job losses. A while ago, the Minister of Natural Resources said that he is very confident this pipeline will keep running. But this week, reports are calling the government's diplomatic approach frustrated. With so much at stake and little time left, Canadians are beyond frustrated. So can the minister be absolutely clear that this threatened shutdown will be averted by May 13th?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the House we are looking at all options. We will leave no stones unturned in defending Canada's energy security. We're working at all political levels, the diplomatic level, and the legal level. We are ready to intervene precisely at the right moment. Line 5 is non-negotiable. We're standing up for energy workers and for Canada's energy security. People will not be left out in the cold. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, every year, thousands of temporary foreign workers plant, grow, and harvest in our fields. They're an essential part of our food supply. The government is providing specialized support services for testing temporary foreign workers who arrive by plane, including in my region. How is the government going to meet the increased demand for testing in the coming months when many temporary foreign workers are expected to arrive in Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to I'd like to thank my colleague from Châteauguay-Lacolle. And Dynacare, I'm pleased to report, will be taking over from Switch Health in providing COVID-19 tests for foreign farm workers arriving in Quebec. Dynacare is already well established in several regions of Quebec, and we're confident in their ability to meet the demand in French, English, and even Spanish by video conference or on-site when needed for the Day 8 test. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Safety Power is a great Canadian company that creates world-class clean tech to remove nitrous oxides from generators. We should be celebrating this homegrown technology, yet the government is about to put in new regulations gazetted on March 9th, 2019, that will literally shutter their operations here in Canada, driving away the very clean tech that Liberals like to say they support. Why is this government refusing to listen to companies like Safety Power and stop these job-killing regulations?
Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the question. Certainly, Canadian clean tech is an important part of a broad approach to addressing the climate issue, and Canada is very fortunate that the investments that have been made over the course of the past 5 years have resulted in Canadian clean tech leading the world. Over the last couple of years, Canada has had between 11 and 12 companies listed on the top 100 clean tech companies in the world. We are very, very committed to working with the clean tech sector to ensure that they can grow and thrive.
The Honourable Member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government awarded a $100 million contract to Switch Health to manage COVID testing for Canadians and travelers returning to our country. What has followed has often been chaos, a completely unreliable testing system. No one answered phones for days, testing kits being sent for analysis without supervision. No accountability. How many cases of COVID were allowed into the country thanks to this faulty testing process by a company that was approved by the Liberal government?
Minister.
Yet again, Mr. Speaker, we see members of the opposition torquing the truth for their own benefit. In fact, none of the cases, Mr. Speaker, came in using Switch Health. That's not the provider that provides the day 3 testing. In fact, that provider provides the day 10 testing. And indeed, we are working with Switch Health, and we have added additional providers to make sure people can get that day 10 test back on time. I'd like to thank all Canadians who are complying with our quarantine and testing requirements.
The honourable member for Souris, Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, Switch Health, a small startup company the government handpicked to manage COVID tests at the U.S. border, is severely overwhelmed, resulting in huge wait times and extremely slow service. Canadians are doing their best to comply with mandatory COVID testing rules, yet in one case, my constituents waited 12 hours just to get a nurse on the line, and they are not alone. Why is this government giving almost $100 million to a company that is unable to provide the services they are being paid to do? Or are we just looking at another wee scandal 2.0?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yet again, we see the opposition casting aspersions without any evidence. I'll tell you this, Mr. Speaker, we have some of the strongest border measures of in the world, including the requirement for a pre-departure test, a post-arrival test, and yes, a day 8 test to ensure that people are not sick later on in their quarantine. And Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to add services, we'll continue to add providers in this space to make sure that Canadians get the quality service they deserve.
Well, member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, Brampton is one of the hardest hit communities by this pandemic. We've been a COVID hotspots with the highest test positivity rate in Ontario, where 1 in 5 people are testing positive. I've heard many questions from my constituents about vaccine supply, how many doses have arrived into Canada, and when will they get their vaccines? These are important questions. Unfortunately, the facts often get lost in misleading and partisan spins from the opposition. Can the minister please set the record straight, provide clarity on our procurement plan from day 1 and into the future? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question and want to assure the House and all Canadians that we are managing the vaccine supply chain in an incredibly competitive environment, leading to us already procuring 14.7 million doses received in Canada. 31% of Canadians have received at least 1 dose, and we are third in the G20. In fact, the provinces are so confident in our supply that both Ontario and Quebec have announced that they will start booking vaccine appointments for all adults before the end of May. Before the end of June, we will have 48 to 50 million vaccines in this country, and before the end of the summer, all Canadians will be fully vaccinated who want it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, the government promised that its infrastructure bank would get projects built and create tens of thousands of jobs for Canadians. But yesterday, the parliamentary budget officer confirmed the bank is failing Canadians. Projects aren't getting built. Jobs aren't being created. The bank is actually a barrier to getting projects done. But this government keeps pouring more money into it, doubling down on helping private investors profit through the bank. Will the minister scrap her privatization experiment and refocus on building projects that communities need?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm always delighted to talk about our infrastructure plan, which is building projects across the country and creating jobs. There's been very positive progress over the past year at the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We brought in new leadership, established a new mandate, and they're implementing their new growth plan and moving forward with projects from the REM in Montreal to the Oneida Battery Project in Ontario to the Southern Manitoba Fibre Project to the Lake Erie Connector. They're leveraging private and institutional capital, creating good jobs, and getting more infrastructure built for Canadians. In just over 3 years, the CIB is achieving more progress at lower costs than its predecessor, P3 Canada, and is in a strong position to build the infrastructure needed to increase Canada's growth and competitiveness and accelerate our transition to a low-carbon economy.
Member for Fredericton.
Rappel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Laurentides-Labelle has a point of order. Laurentides-Labelle, yes. Unfortunately, the interpreters who do amazing work were unable to do so because the minister wasn't wearing the appropriate headset. So if that could be rectified so that we could get the interpretation, please. Okay, we would ask the minister perhaps to repeat with her headset on if she has it.
Headset with her? While it's taken care of, I want to remind all the members that in order to facilitate the work for our interpreters and everybody else who's listening, it's good to have the headset. No, it's not good. It's obligatory that you have the headset that is commissioned by the government. A lot of thought went into it, and we just want to make sure that everything runs smoothly. The Honourable Minister.
Alors, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, my apologies. I just forgot. So I'll repeat in French. Mr. Speaker, the Infrastructure Bank of Canada has made significant progress over the past year. We have implemented new directives and a new mandate, and the bank is implementing its new growth plan and moving forward with projects from the RAM in Montreal and another project in Ontario, including the fiber optics project in southern Manitoba and the Lake Erie Connector. By mobilizing institutional and private capital and creating good jobs and building more infrastructure for Canadians. I'm sorry, that's all the time we have today for question period.
Today? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I thought I'd... The Honourable Member for Fredericton. It's one of those days. I apologize. The Honourable Member for Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Natural Resources said that affordable, safe nuclear power is key to reaching Canada's climate goals. It is the nuclear industry who carefully designed and continues to perpetuate that greenwashed illusion. The reality is that competitive technologies like solar, wind, and geothermal are operational today. Even when facing these indisputable facts, this government allocated millions of dollars to develop SMNRs, a hypothetical industry that relies strictly on massive federal subsidies and does nothing to resolve the problem of radioactive waste production. The risks are being ignored, the dangers trivialized. Mr. Speaker, in New Brunswick, nuclear is not a success story. After emerging from a $2.4 billion refurbishment, Point Lepreau is still losing $50,000 every hour of unplanned downtime.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Certainly in the context of the move to a lower carbon future, greening of the grid and reducing emissions associated with electricity generation are obviously a critical component, as is greening of the transportation network and a whole range of other things. In that context, it is important that we are looking at the most cost-effective ways to do this, but also the most reliable. In that context, certainly solar, wind, geothermal, and a whole range of other technologies have a role to play. Small modular reactors may in the future have a role to play, and certainly that is something that in the context of looking at a climate crisis, we're looking at all non-emitting technology.
And that's all the time we have today for questions and comment or question period. We have 2 points of order. Nous avons un rappel.
We have a point of order. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There has been consultations with the party, and I think you will find unanimous consent for the following motion, that this House recognize that the economic policy of the United States, particularly with regard to the trade embargo on Cuba, should not undermine Canadian businesses and Quebec businesses that are operating pursuant to Canadian law, trading with their partners abroad. Thank you.
Good to
All those opposed to the motion will say nay. It is not unanimous, unfortunately.
A point of order, the Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Moments ago, during one of the last questions, you had indicated that, to use your words, it was obligatory that members use proper headset. And I'm assuming you mean a House of Commons approved headset. Earlier today, during debate, your deputy allowed a member to proceed who was using earbuds, and I'm just curious if you can confirm the rationale at the time was it seems to be acceptable for the translators. Can you confirm to the House if it is an absolute requirement to use that headset, or if the requirement is as long as it's sufficiently heard by the translators?
Yeah, well, I'll let the Honourable Opposition Whip got a point of order as well on that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member.
Allow me to add to this as well.
It did, in fact, happen earlier today that the chair occupant at the time did rule that there was an opportunity for a member, I think it was for Vancouver Kingsway, I believe, had the opportunity to speak. He did have technical challenges with his equipment, and therefore, his ability was to use, I believe it was his iPhone, I think it was a phone anyway, along with the appropriate earbuds and microphone that went along with that phone. It was under the understanding of the technicians and the interpreters that he could be heard and understood, and it was allowed. And I would certainly suggest, Mr. Speaker, that there are circumstances like that arise, and I think where someone can be heard and it can be confirmed, they should in fact be allowed. And I would hope that would be the ruling you'll find.
That particular case was brought to my attention earlier, and that's exactly what happened. The honourable member had to make a statement, and the person in the chair at the time used their judgment. And I have three amazing people who are taking those places, and I have to put my faith in their judgment. I believe it was the right thing to do, and it was done in coordination with the technicians to make sure that the interpreters got everything that was said. So everyone has to have their headsets. If there is something wrong, please make a case that hopefully we can work so that everyone can be on the record for what they would like to be heard. And nous avons la déclaration.
We have a
of order. Yes, the Honourable Minister of Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During question period, the member from Lethbridge said that the Department of Justice was against an amendment that was brought forward in the Heritage Committee on Bill C-10. This is factually incorrect, Mr. Speaker. It's a former employee of the Justice Department. I'm convinced my honourable colleague did not intend to mislead this House and Canadians, and I would like to offer her the opportunity to set the record straight.
To the area of debate, but I want to thank the member for bringing that up.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent has a question.
That be a debate, Monsieur le Président, comme à tous les jeudis.
Like every Thursday, it is a pleasure for me to ask my ministerial counterpart, the member for Honoré-Mercier, what will be the parliamentary menu for the upcoming week. Thank you. The honourable member for Honoré-Mercier and the government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my friend from Louis Saint Laurent. This afternoon, Mr. Speaker, we will continue the debate on the Conservative Party opposition motion. Tomorrow, we will begin with a vote on the Ways and Means motion for the implementation of certain provisions of the budget tabled April 19th. Then we will move to consideration at second reading of Bill S3 on Offshore Health and Safety Act. Monday, we will